Right. Good morning, Greene County. How are you guys today? It's great to see everybody. The weather is perfect. Whoever dialed that up, thank you. I love it. There you go. We have somebody taking credit for the weather. That's perfect. All right. Well, this is that kind of weather we all talk about we don't get enough of. Well, we're there right now. So let's enjoy it while it's here. It will be hot soon enough. This morning, we hear from our Historic Sites Board, which is really, I think, a fascinating board, and the work they do is outstanding. And so I will let you hear from them because they're going to tell you things that are more exciting than what I can say. So would you welcome Laura Nichols? Can you come up and share with us today? Thank you so much.
Good morning. I guess I better adjust this down. This is probably my second time public speaking, and ironically, the first time was in this very room. But I got the advantage of speaking this direction. So yes, I am Laura Nichols. I'm the chair of the Greene County Historic Sites Board, and I want to thank you all for inviting us to come out and show you some of the things that we do, or at least try to explain to you some of the things that we do. This first slide is, what is the Greene County Historic Sites Board? Try to see. You guys will have to get me with my glasses on. The Greene County Historic Sites Board was established by court order August of 1979, revised June of 1989. It is a volunteer advisory board that meets monthly for the purposes of identification, retention, and advocating the preservation of historic sites in Greene County. Additionally, we maintain the official list of the Greene County Registered Historic Sites. The HSB is not a historic site commission. We have no authority beyond research and recommendations to the commission. We also have no authority within the city limits of Springfield. There are exceptions to the above rule. If the property belongs to Greene County, then it may meet the criteria for inclusion. For example, this very historic courthouse that we're in, it is on our register. In fact, it is number 1 on our register. It was registered February 25th of 1980. The register is designed to include properties in every locality within the county. A general store, a community's park, a main street, or the prehistoric remains of an Indian village may be just as eligible for inclusion in the registry as Wilson's Creek National Battlefield. These properties, whether districts, sites, buildings, structures, or objects, are of architectural or archaeologically significant for their associations with important persons or events in Greene County. The register includes sites like the Nathan Boone Homestead in Ash Grove, Womack Mill in Fairgrove, the Danforth Homestead in Stratford, and Crystal Cave just north of town. We have a mission statement that reads, the Greene County Historic Sites Board is to identify historic sites, advocate preservation, and educate citizens about the sites and structures that the board recognizes as having significant elements in the cultural and historical heritage of the county. Our board is a 12-member board. Board members are recommended by the board and appointed by the Greene County Commission to a term of 3 years. The list of our board members, I guess it would help if I would advance the slide. My apologies. There we go. Laura Nichols, myself, I'm the chair. Steve Bodenhammer, vice chair and lifetime member. Jackie Warfel, lifetime member. David Coonrod, Lindsay Strahan, Taylin Sumners, Hayden Chambers, Teddy Fleck, Deborah Hickey, Jonathan Saunders, and Amy Westerman. And if you'll notice there at the bottom, we do have a vacant position. Do I see any takers? Anybody interested? On this slide, you will see this is the first half of our list. This displays some of our earliest designations. The Historic Courthouse, Nathan Boone Homestead, Wilson's Creek National Battlefield, Mount Pisgah Methodist Church, Womack Mill, and Berry Cemetery. This is the second half of our list. We have 5 graves of Revolutionary War soldiers on the register. And at the bottom right, you'll see highlighted, that is our most recent designation. That is our first Missouri Century farm, the Hawk Missouri Century Farm. Century Farm, if for those of you that don't know, it is a farm of at least 40 productive acres, which has been owned by the same family for 100 years or more. This program was started by the University of Missouri as a bicentennial project in 1976 and continues to this day with enrollment each year during the months of April and May through the local extension services. We have about 100 Missouri Century Farms in Greene County alone, so I hope we will be seeing more on our list soon. What constitutes a historic site? Criteria for the register are designed to guide members of the HSB, the commission, preservation organizations, and members of the general public in evaluating properties for entry into the register. Our guidelines are properties must be at least 50 years old and retain their historic character. It must also have integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. Properties must also meet one or more of these criteria. So our first bullet point, property is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of our history. For example, Wilson's Creek National Battlefield. That battlefield is probably the most significant feature, or one of the most significant features of our county's history. It is the site of the second major battle of the Civil War. The battle was considered by many historians to be the most important Civil War battle west of the Mississippi River, fought on August 10th, 1861. Now it's about a 1,200-acre national park. Our second item, property is associated with lives of persons significant in our past. I'd like to call out the Cherokee Trail of Tears. We have 6 segments of the trail that runs through Greene County registered as historic sites. This trail marks the forced removal of the Cherokee Indian Nation to Indian Territory in Oklahoma in 1838. This dispossession and relocation was approximately 20,000 Cherokees. Our third bullet point, property embodies the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction, or represents the work of a master, or possesses high artistic values, or represents a significant and distinguishable entity whose components lack individual distinction. For instance, Nathan Boone the Nathan Boone Cabin and Homestead. Nathan Boone was a noted surveyor, legislator, soldier, and of course the son of the famous Daniel Boone. Nathan came with his family in the 1830s and built a 1.5-story home believed to be the oldest and best preserved walnut log cabin west of the Mississippi River. We're on a trend, right? The home, a double-pin dog trot log house, was constructed in 1837. The cabin and the 400 acres surrounding it now are also has state designation as a state park. And then our fourth item there, property has yielded or is likely to yield information important to prehistory or history. There's a lot of properties on our list that would fall under this category, but I chose one closer to me, Crystal Cave. It is a commercial cave that opened to the public in 1893. Human skeletal remains and other tools have been found in this cave dating back to 1000 to 1200 AD. So I think that's pretty significant. Excuse me. There are additional considerations when evaluating prospective sites. Ordinarily, cemeteries, birthplaces, graves of historic figures, structures that have been moved, buildings that are less than 50 years old shall not be considered eligible. However, these properties may qualify if they fall within the following categories. A religious property deriving primary significance or artistic distinction or historic importance. My example I chose was Mount Pisgah Methodist Church. It's east of town near Pearson Creek. Mount Pisgah Campgrounds, which is the site of where the church is, was originally 40 acres used by early settlers and freighters on the Rock Bridge Road. The church was organized on the grounds in 1844, and the current structure was built in 1888. The first 2 buildings were destroyed by fire, one in 1865 and the other in 1887. This area also served as a stop for soldiers during the Civil War. The second point there, a building or structure removed from its original location, but is significant for the architectural value or which is the surviving structure most associated with a historic person or event. The Dimer House. The Ben Dimer House, circa 1920, is a craftsman-style home with rubble stone exterior walls done by a master stoneman. Dimer is recognized to be the person responsible for the location and construction of the historic courthouse. Benjamin J. Dimer was a Greene County judge elected in 1903. He's also the founder of Green Lawn Cemetery. The third, a birthplace or grave with a historic figure of outstanding importance or other site or building directly associated with his or her productive life. I picked out 3 of our graves of Revolutionary War soldiers. Graves of Revolutionary War soldiers David Bedell and Elijah Headley both are buried at Old Salem Cemetery. They homesteaded many acres in and near Ebenezer in 1834 to 1836. They were lifelong friends, compatriots in the Revolutionary War, and brothers-in-law. Not to leave out, though, the third one, grave of Revolutionary War soldier Samuel Steele, that is located at Mount Comfort Cemetery. Steele served as a private and a light horseman with the North Carolina Company against the Tories under Cornwallis. He came to Greene County in 1836. Steele had 5 daughters that married 5 of Elijah Headley's sons. And I remember reading somewhere along the way, one of them wished they had just one more child to hook up with the other. I just thought that was kind of a cute story. Our 4th bullet point, a cemetery that derives its primary significance from graves or persons of transcendent importance, from age, from distinctive design features, or from association with historic events. I chose Berry Cemetery. An acre of land was set aside in 1875 by William H. Berry for the burial of slaves, paupers, and Native Americans. It is the only remaining physical link to the community of African Americans who lived in slavery, were freed, bought land, made homes, built churches and schools in Ash Grove during the 1800s and early 1900s. It is also on the state and national registers. Next, a reconstructed building, when accurately executed in a suitable environment and presented in a dignified manner as part of a restoration master plan, or when no other building or structure with the same association has survived. This one's probably familiar to most everyone. Womack Mill up in Fairgrove. Built in 1882 by John Bogle and Joseph Hine, this mill is the oldest standing commercial structure in Fairgrove. Though it sits near water, it has always been steam powered until the 1920s. The mill operated until 1969. It is also on the National Register. Next to last, a property primarily commemorative in intent of design, age, tradition, or symbolic value has invested it with its own historic significance. The Cherokee Trail of Tears. And then last, a property achieving significance within the last 50 years. The Hawk, Missouri Century Farm. That's located outside Walnut Grove, established in 1833 by Isaac William Looney. This is the oldest Greene County, Missouri Century Farm, with original settlers' descendants still living on and operating the farm. In fact, it is Isaac Looney's great-grandson and his family that operate that farm. They received their Century Farm distinction in 1995. Bear in mind, we have many examples that fit all of these different criteria. These are just the ones that I chose to use today. Now that we kind of have an understanding of what the guidelines are, then we have a nomination process. We have a nomination form that's completed by either someone on the board or even the property owner, or in conjunction. We do encourage that. It moves on to the Greene County Commission. The nomination is added to a commission briefing, and if approved, certificates and the site marker are made and presented to the owner. The site is then added to all our county booklets, maps, and brochures. Persons interested in listing a property, site, or structure on the Greene County Register can contact the commission office and request a nomination form. I might get the hang of this before it's over. So it's really important to note what listing a property on the Greene County Historic Site Register means, or perhaps what it doesn't mean. It may provide prestigious recognition to significant properties, encourages preservation of historic properties, educates the public about the valuable historic resources of the county, provide information about historic properties for local and statewide development, provide basic eligibility for financial incentives when available, may serve as a first step toward listing on the state or national register of historic places. What it does not do, it does not restrict in any way a private property owner's ability to alter, manage, or dispose of a property, does not require that the property be maintained, repaired, or restored, invoke special zoning or local landmark designation, allow the listing of private property over an owner's objection, allow the listing of historic districts over a majority of property owners' objection, nor does it require public access to private property. According to Greene County Planning and Zoning, structures on the register are a mark of distinction and can be used for educational purposes. Historic designation by the county confers no protection of the structure or requirements upon the owner. There are no county ordinances or regulations regulating the use of structures with historic designation. The only restrictions that exist for a Greene County Register historic site are the same normal zoning regulations that apply for all structures in the county. The owner's potential benefits enhance quality of life and sense of place, financial returns, economic development incentives, ownership pride, respect and honor for owner and property, a powerful real estate marketing tool with positive impact on market values, and cultural tourism. Now, I didn't see any hands earlier when I asked for any volunteers, but just in case you're still interested, applications are made available by the commission office to become a board member. Once an application is submitted to the commission, it's sent over to the chair and reviewed by the board. A recommendation is passed on to the commission, and then the commission, once all the recommendations are submitted, the application is placed on a commission briefing as an action item under board appointments. Once approved or denied at commission briefing, the chair is notified of the results, and the commission office will notify the applicant. So I know I've covered quite a bit of information, but I would like you all to understand how dedicated we as a board are to recognize locations significant to our county's rich history. So on behalf of myself and the Greene County Historic Sites Board, we thank you for allowing us to explain and showcase the incredible work that has identified and recognized 80 historic sites in Greene County. And I'll open up for any questions. Yes, sir.
So I didn't hear you mention Route 66. Would that be something that would be considered?
That's a good question. And could I get my fellow, at least Steve, my vice chair, would you mind coming up and helping me answer some questions?
My hearing aids weren't turned up, so you're gonna have to repeat the question.
That's okay. This is most of you probably already know. This is Steve Bodenhammer. He is a lifetime member on the board, and he's the vice chair. So the question was Route 66. Where does that fall in designation on the historic sites?
Well, I think it would be subject to be considered by
Yes,
the
yeah.
Historic Sites Board.
Yes.
No one has brought it to the level of consideration that I'm aware of at this point. I mean, technically, it's somewhat semi-equivalent to a modern-day Cherokee Trail of Tears.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
it's a route that has historic significance. So
Yes.
it's a good idea, and Ms. Chairwoman, you can put that on the agenda.
Okay, does anybody else want to put some more work on our plate? I'm just kidding. Does anyone have any other questions? Thank you so much. We do. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Hey, Laura, thank you for bringing the presentation today. The information is really valuable. From a personal standpoint, can you tell me what drew you to the board?
I can. We don't want to be here all day, but I live in this wonderful, beautiful little community called Ebenezer. I was born and raised in Ebenezer, and I've had the fortune of moving out and about I've lived in some other states, but fortunately, about 12 years ago, I got to come home, and we had a zoning issue in our little community, and somebody brought it to my attention, and several of us organized, my neighbors, and we created a whole, I don't know, what do you call it? Anyway, we fought it. We won. I think that it was actually, we didn't really win. I will take it as a win. They just pulled the request. But so after that, then I realized I needed to protect my community. And so we started a historical society. But in that, because we had to come up for the zoning meeting, I got introduced to some people on the planning and zoning board, and someone had invited me to come to the historic sites board, and that was it. That was it. So I tried to make it as short as possible. So thank you for that question.
Well, you're welcome. I know that I don't travel very often, but when I do, that's the first thing I want to see. What's the history of the community I'm going to? And so being able to be very open and public with that is valuable to our visitors.
Yeah, very, very nicely said. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You shared with the commissioners when we went out to visit about the early prominence of Ebenezer and where things were headed and how things took a turn. Could you share with the group here about that?
Oh, you mean that if it hadn't been for the railroad, Springfield would have never amount to nothing? That one. Oh boy, I have many authorities on that statement, yet I have yet to be able to find verifiable proof of that. So if any of you all know of anything, yes, it was a nice little boom town. It was settled by the Methodists in the 1830s, and it just grew from there. There was a college. It was basically a Methodist college, but it was more than just your standard. They taught Greek and Latin, and and of course we had a mill and a blacksmith and a cannery and a couple of general stores, and then it just went away. But we're still there. So yes, ma'am.
I was recently in Leadership Academy and we got to tour your facility, and I was impressed with the handling of documents and the preservation.
Oh, in the archives?
The whole, yeah.
Oh, in the archives, yeah, they do a great job. Connie does a very good job over there. Yeah, for
The
sure. Thank you.
archives is under the county clerk's
Yeah,
office.
yeah. But we do work with them. Yeah, we do.
One of the best archives I've seen in the state of Missouri at county level.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys. You have a great day. It's beautiful. I'm sorry I have to be inside.